opponent. That would make you win. So all that ends up happening if you try to lose this one, if both teams try to lose, it just ends up being a tie like this. Both teams win. Time for an intense game of bumper balls. Everyone runs off into the lava together. Everyone is in fourth place. In bumper balls, you can have two people run off at the start, and then they'll both be in third. And if the two remaining Yoshis both run off together, then the game will say that they're both in first place. All right, we need to focus here so we can get out on the first round. What is it? Okay, everyone puts up left. And he's going to cut all of us. Even though he cuts us off from left to right, everyone still is going to be in fourth place because it's dependent on how many rounds he can last. So this is considered a tie to the game. Everyone's in fourth. All right, hop rope jump.
Hi, Deloads.
What if everyone gets out in the
Hi,
first round?
everybody.
What happens? Everyone's in fourth if you all get out in the first round. But let's see what happens. Let's jump for the first one. And then what if we get out after that? Then everyone is in first place. That's so weird. If you get a score of 0, everyone's in fourth. But if you get at least 1, then everyone's in first place. Let's try completing the minigame as quickly as possible. Okay, that's very fast. That's very fast. It almost looks like a tear is coming out of it. Like that's 6 points. That is worth 6 points. How is that worth 6 points? Okay, what if all these Yoshis get eaten by the Cheep Cheep? There's a hungry Cheep Cheep. We're not gonna swim. We're all just gonna stand here. Let's see what happens. The Cheep Cheep's all of the Yoshis, and it's a tie. Oh, the Cheep Cheep also eats the bombs. But let's see what happens if everyone guesses 0. Do we all still get first place, or does everyone get fourth place? Now, nobody pressed any buttons. Everyone is in fourth place if you all get 0. But if you count even 1, and everyone has the same number, then you all get first place. Let's do handcar havoc, but we try to fall off as quickly as possible. Let's see.
Hello.
Let's see.
Hello.
Let's see.
Hello.
There we go. Tread carefully is normally one of my favorite mini games in this game. It's a super fun mini game, and there's also some nice stuff we can do when everyone's being controlled by the same control. We can all turn a bit to the side like this, and when everyone shoots, we can all eliminate each other together, and that actually makes everyone come in first, not everyone come in fourth, which might be a bit surprising. So the Yoshis in this mod, they look a bit darker than normal, and when they build snowballs and throw them, they all just go towards the center along the same path like this. And I also inverted the controls, so when the Yoshis walk around like this, the two on the right and the two over there, they are the opposite of each other. This is so interesting. When you move left and right with the characters like this, when they have the snowballs, they turn in different ways, so it isn't 100% symmetrical. And sometimes you'll see one Yoshi actually push their snowball off of the level first. Go. Let's see if we can get everyone to jump off together. And surprisingly, that somehow worked. Okay, wait. Over here, let's just make our time. By 3 minutes, then it just ends up being a tie. Nobody wins. Time for the final countdown, but Yoshi is in such a rush that he can't even wait for the final countdown. So they all just run off, and perhaps surprisingly, they're all in fourth place, and it's a tie. All right, what is the worst score in Snow World? What if you actually do nothing? Will it be 0? Oh, it looks like it's going to be 0. You don't even spin.
Hi.
You just jump down straight like this. Will it say 0 or what? Does it 0? And 0 doesn't even pop up on the screen. Yoshi's like, all right, come on, press the button, let's go. And Yoshi's like, wee, I'm just having fun dropping down. And the other two Yoshis are like, pathetic. These Goombas in the background are so excited about this show, even though nobody's even doing any spinning or getting any points. The Goombas are absolutely ecstatic about this show. What if everyone just gets a score of 0 in this? What if everyone's like, you know what? I don't
Hindi
want
na
to be
pa,
whacked by a
later pa
Monty Bull today. Today I'm just gonna stay underground. We're all going to get a score of 0 over here.
Later,
And the Monty Bulls are still
magkukunik na
wandering
lang sa
around going
kwan
from
ha?
hole to hole. It's like they're getting ready to whack people. And if everyone gets a score of 0, it's a
si
tie.
Kuya
We don't have a winner. Wow, we don't even have the
Joel,
cutscene of the Monty Bulls
Hi.
chasing the people in the
and
background. Alright, let's see. What about Chip Shot Challenge? What if
alam ko
we
na
all
sila.
play very poorly in this minigame and we try to get the worst score possible? What if we just shoot off to the side? We're like, goodbye, golf ball. And we don't even land on the island. We're just making all characters shoot off to the side like this as far as they can. Everyone misses. Everyone gets no score because you can't calculate how many yards away from the pole you are. Well, I guess the game.
Ay, shout
So
out
we're making
everyone
all
ng
Yoshis play
shout
as
out
poorly
Kuya
as possible,
Rodis,
launching the golf balls
Kuya
off
Elizel,
of the island, not even
shout out
landing on the island.
everyone.
Shout out, everyone.
No one
Shout
getting a
out.
score, and it ends up
Thank
being
you
a
for
tie. Everyone's in
watching.
fourth
Thank you
place.
for watching, though.
Oh, but you know what I haven't seen that I would like? Powerful weapon.
Hi Nancy, thank you for viewing, for watching. Oh, are you sleeping? You want to go home?
No. I'm just feeling
Si
bored.
Papa na lang, sabi, si Papa na lang maalis sa Si Papa na lang maalis sa
Hmm.
Basta, just say.
Because we're about to take a look.
Ay, Ben, ito na lang.
Watch out. When most people think of
Chick,
rocket
chick.
launchers,
Mm.
Chick, chick.
high-tech weapons that launch in
I'm just fun.
It's not a box either. It's all gunpowder.
Hi Ate Waray Vlogs.
What are vlogs?
Yes.
No vlogs?
No, I mean, ano, he YouTube channel. We're back online.
Would fire at
What
roughly the
happened?
same time. Just imagine being on the battlefield when all of a sudden a wave of explosive propelled arrows started raining down all around you. Not pretty. And don't think about running away either, because it's believed that the range of these explosive launchers was close to 1,650 feet. For some context, that's about 38% farther than the range of medieval archers who would have
Thank
used
you pa
bows
sa
and arrows around the
pagtatambay.
same
Yung Papa
time.
daw ni Ronin yung
I guess you could
re-respect.
say enemy
Diba?
soldiers
May
need to
internet ka naman na.
watch out if they saw
Connect,
this thing on the
connect sa
battlefield.
Shelo Wi-Fi.
Kami, ito
Sorry, I
yun.
couldn't
Di mo
resist.
ang voice. You play.
The fire lance. If you had to guess, when would you say firearms were first created? They feel pretty modern, so maybe the 18th century, 17th at a push. Well,
Thank you po, Kuya
surprisingly, the
Joel.
first
Say
ever
thank you, Kuya.
gunpowder-powered weapon actually
May
dates
say
all
thank
the
you,
way
Kuya
back
Joel,
to
sa
the
Thank you,
pagtambay.
Kuya.
as it was called back then, was created in China during the historic Jin Song Wars. It was a pole-armed spear-like weapon, and strapped to the front was a bamboo tube filled with gunpowder and a slow match. Once the fuse was ignited, the gunpowder tube would pump out a stream of flames towards the enemy, aka ancient flamethrower. As gunpowder was modified and improved through the centuries, so did the power of the fire lance. In one version, pellets were stuffed into the bamboo tube and fired out like bullets, aka an ancient flamethrower shotgun. By the 13th century, fire lances discarded the lance point in favor of relying solely on the gunpowder blast. The weapon became so powerful that the projectiles they fired on their own had enough force to fatally injure people. But as badass as this sounds, there were some serious drawbacks. The weapons were designed to only blast 1 or 2 shots max. Plus, the effective range of the weapon was only 10 feet, meaning you had to get real close to your enemy if you wanted to take them down. Despite these limitations, it didn't take long for word to spread about the new weapon on the block. By the end of the 14th century, these malevolent mortars weren't just causing havoc in eastern China, but it spread to the Middle East and Europe.
Hi, Ate
Looks like people all
Telma.
over the world
Hi.
were having a blast.
Ning, ning, ning.
The Warwolf.
Yeah,
Okay, just the name of
Gold View.
Warwolf is enough
Yeah.
to strike fear into the
I
heart of
only
the
took
toughest
silver
man.
because
It
Yung
sounds
other kid
impossibly
is here
badass,
except
but
for
what
no.
sort of weapon could such a
Ano ba
thing
si
belong to?
ano? Si ano?
Did
Kaya
people
dun eh.
saddle up actual wolves and ride them into the front lines? Well, sadly, no.
Wait lang, kaya
It's actually a
magpapalit
kind of
din.
trebuchet, a medieval siege machine used to hurl large stones or other missiles at an enemy stronghold. Oh, but it ain't your granddaddy's trebuchet. It's this giant trebuchet. Standing at a dizzying 60 feet, this beast is believed to be the largest trebuchet design ever brought to life. These mega machines work by using a massive counterweight that's raised and held in position by a trigger mechanism. When the trigger is released, the counterweight falls, and the sling whips upward, flinging boulders or fiery projectiles hundreds of feet through the air. The war wolf was created in the 14th century, when England was battling Scotland. In 1304, Stirling Castle, thanks to its huge walls and high vantage point, was the final Scottish stronghold to resist English rule. For 4 months, the English laid siege to Stirling Castle,
Wait lang.
constantly bombarding the fortification with lead balls. Yet
2 is the correct answer because when you add 1 and 1 together, the sum is 2. It's a simple mathematical calculation. Math may not be my strong suit, but I have a way with words and melodies.
lead balls, yet it wouldn't fall. So, Edward I, the King of England, brought in the war wolf.
Hi,
The
Papa. Ano si
towering
Papa?
trebuchet took
Hello?
5 carpenters and 49
Hello?
workers
Hindi,
over
hindi kami nakapag, ano ni Papa kagabi.
But
Nakapag-check
it was
kasi
worth
brown
it.
out.
When the war wolf was finished, the sight of
Say hi,
it alone
Papa.
was
Hi,
apparently
Papa.
enough to convince the Scottish
Really,
resistors
si
to
Papa is
surrender.
not
But Edward
responsive.
didn't listen.
Haba.
After all, what's the point of building a toy if you're not going to use it? And boy, did he use it. Modern estimates claim that the towering trebuchet hurled
Wait lang ha,
300-pound
someone's
rocks over
asking.
650
Dahil nagsisale kami
feet
dito sa
at a
Cagatan.
speed of 120 miles per hour. No prizes for guessing what the Warwolf did to Stirling Castle. Yep, the curtain wall of the fortification was completely demolished. Happy now, Edward? Well, you know what'll put a smile on my face? You hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Rain down on those things. All done? Great. Now let's get back to it. The Bog Knock. Anyone who's seen Wolverine knows just how lethal having metal claws on your hands can be. Yeah, okay. Technically, they're a made-up metal called adamantium, but incredibly, something like this actually exists in real life. Okay, no one's ever made steel claws that protract from human knuckles, but this weapon comes pretty close. The Bognock, otherwise known as tiger claw, is a small 2-inch long slashing device hailing from 17th century India. The 2 rings at either end of this sharp scratcher enabled the weapon to be inserted into the user's fingers, so it looked just like a claw. And if you're not a fan of the long blades, smaller versions of the Bognock could also be discreetly concealed in your palm until it was time to strike down an unsuspecting enemy. If shredding your opponent like a tiger wasn't metal enough, some fearsome folk even poisoned
Naka-sale
their
po kami,
claws.
mga imported
So,
and branded
not only would their foe
products.
be left with
Who wants
deep
to buy?
wounds, but also
Yes.
poison running through their
We'll
bloodstream.
just
The
get
modified
it and
version
throw
of
it
the
there.
Bognock even came with a blade built into the side, just in case scratching your enemies to death wasn't enough. All of a sudden, Wolverine was attached was controlled by a system. So, when an enemy ship came towards the seawall of Syracuse,
Wait.
the
Ano
down
nangyari
onto
sa
the
wifi
attacking
natin?
ship. Once it had a grip on the ship, men or oxen would use the pulley system to raise the hook with it. With the ship raised, it would then suddenly be released, crashing back to the water and smashing the vessel. Even if the ship wasn't obliterated, there were written accounts detailing how the hook would capsize ships and cause mass confusion. While no dimensions were left, giant versions of the claw based on its limited descriptions have been created to test its plausibility. many versions of which succeeded in lifting a ship from the sea. It may not prove that such a mighty claw ever really did it, but it certainly could have. Now that I know it could have existed,
Good morning, Ate
is it wrong that I
Golset.
want one?
How are you, host daw?
The
She is
Hellburners.
asking. Hi,
Now, I couldn't
Golset.
mention
How are
ships
you?
without talking about
Good.
Hellburners.
A little bit bored.
They may sound like the latest punk rock band, but Hellburner ships were actually one of history's most brutal weapons. As their name alludes, these weren't regular ships. These were fire ships. Inside two ships, Giambelli chambers within each chamber, 10 pounds of gunpowder. And then the chambers were surrounded with metal to make the impact of the blast just that little. On the first ship, named
Hi,
Fortune,
Ate
the
Telma.
explosion was meant to be set off by a slow-burning fuse. But unfortunately, the Fortune drifted away and vanished with the explosion doing little damage. All hope was not lost, though, because the second ship, aptly named Hope, was still to come. Instead of a delayed fuse, the Hope used a time bomb, an advanced mixture of clockwork and gunpowder, which would automatically light the fuse at a precise time. On this occasion, the vessel drifted straight into the path of the Spanish ships before successfully going boom. The explosion was so loud that it was said it could be heard 50 miles away. Unsurprisingly, the blast of the bomb and the raining debris was pretty destructive, costing the lives of some 1,000 Spanish troops. In fact, the detonation was so large that historians believe it was the largest man-made explosion at that point in history. Well,
Hi,
maybe
Papa.
it's news when you've done Hellburners. Except this time, it wasn't a ship itself, but an ingenious weapon carried on board. From 674 to 678 CE, Constantinople, the ancient capital of the Byzantine Empire, was under siege. An Arab fleet of ships secured bases along the coast and blockaded the Constantinople's fortification. With the city under threat, the great inventor Kalinick created a weapon so powerful that it changed the course of the war. Named Greek Fire, this ancient flamethrower worked by launching a flammable mixture from tubes on the prows of Byzantine ships onto the Arab vessels. The flames were shot out of pressurized siphons, giving them better range and accuracy to ensure the deadly mixture made it aboard the enemy ships. The fire would then gush onto the Arab fleet, destroying the vessels and forcing the men to escape the wreck or be burned alive. Sounds odd. Although, there's one problem with having what's essentially a flamethrower at sea. The water. Not a problem for this stuff, though. Greek fire was so flammable that apparently it could even burn on water. The weapon was so effective that it wiped out the Arab Navy, ended the 4-month siege. You're probably wondering what could create such a dangerous liquid. Well, that spicy secret has been lost to time, and the ingredients can only be hypothesized today. Naphtha, a flammable liquid, is thought to be the main component. This was likely mixed with
Mama, I'm
potassium
actually trying to
nitrate,
see if
and
this
finally,
channel is
a
real.
sprinkling of sulfur, which, when added,
How can...
produced
Yes,
a booming
Rody's
noise and a
Adventure.
cloud of
Sige.
smoke.
Rody's,
And
you read
voila,
it. Very
Greek
good.
fire.
Every...
Wait,
Hey. Every viewers, Ronin is searching and subscribing
Yes, Roddy's Adventures.
with her
Can
other
always go
YouTube
up.
account. Yes. Say hi, Rody's Adventures.
Hi, Roddy's Adventures. I'm going to go to your channel if you do have a channel.
Yes, he had.
I mean, a
Roddy's
YouTube channel, I mean.
Rody's
But if you
Adventure.
thought that was
No,
brutal, then strap
it's
in, because there's one weapon from Aztec history that's even more
Yeah.
spine-chilling. This is the macuahuitl. It's not known exactly when this wooden paddle first emerged, but by the time Spanish conquistadors arrived in Mexico in the 16th century, it was widely distributed amongst Aztec
It's right
soldiers.
here.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure,
it's here.
swinging a
Say
3-foot-long
hi,
paddle at your
Kuya
enemy would
Roddy's, and subscribe
probably
him.
have been enough to knock them out. But what exactly makes
Yeah.
this an
Subscribe him first. Yeah, that's
weapon?
it.
Well,
And then Ate
macuahuitl
Telma.
doesn't get its ruthless
Ate, where's Ate
reputation
Telma na?
from
Ate
the paddle,
Telma
but
Averion, that
the
one.
obsidian blade blades which lined the edges.
Look for it.
This naturally
Sige.
forming volcanic
Tama
glass is
Alberian.
razor sharp and has a cutting edge 500 times greater than even the sharpest steel blade.
Fire wheel
It's so
dirt
sharp and
bike.
precise that it's even used in a
A
variety of
fire
simple
wheel
blades.
dirt bike.
But the Aztecs weren't using obsidian to make precise incisions. No, they were more looking to chop their enemies' heads off. And unsurprisingly, the Macuahuitl was
Las
pretty good
Paz
at that.
Victory.
Spanish accounts talk about their effectiveness of not only removing the heads of men,
I really
but
like
even
Exam
horses.
Oil.
In instances when chopping their foe's head off wasn't necessary,
Ooh.
Aztec warriors would inflict
What's that?
many
Rody's
shallow cuts
Adventure?
on their victims
Yes.
with
And it's about
serrated
animals,
blades
bikes,
before clubbing
cats,
them
and
unconscious
Yeah.
food.
with the paddle and
Wow.
parting them back
How about
for
Ate Let's do
sacrifice.
that?
And there was nothing lighthearted about this weapon. Death whistles. Seems like the Aztecs had a thing for suffering, because their wild weaponry didn't stop at the Macuahuitl. Back in 1999, archaeologists made a shocking discovery in Tlatelolco, Mexico City. It was a skeleton clutching what looked like toy whistles, though these weren't toys, but something far more sinister. Later studies revealed that the victim was holding death whistles. These tiny instruments were an important part of Aztec rituals, supposedly helping guide the spirits of the dead in the afterlife. But historians believe there may be an even more fearsome use for these instruments. When blown into, Aztec death
My mom is
whistles
usually in charge.
scream. My God. It's theorized that the Aztecs used these whistles as a form of psychological warfare. When the Spanish conquistadors clashed with the Aztecs in the 16th century, they described the Aztec warriors using drums, shells, and other instruments during battle. Supposedly, the collective sound of hundreds of psychotic screams would have been a tactic to confuse and bewilder any enemies that the Aztecs were facing. Jeez. And I thought horse-slaying clubs were as bad as it could get.
What?
The Urumi.
What?
What is a sword?
No, you're not
A
allowed
sharp,
to end the night.
rigid, bladed weapon, right? Well, it turns out that not all ancient swords follow those rules. Take this wacky invention that looks more like a dog leash than a sword. But strange as it looks, it's actually a pretty formidable blade. The Urumi, as it's known, first appeared in India. It's not known exactly when this sword came into use, but some experts believe it dates back to the Sangam period, around 1800 years ago. Instead of stabbing, the flexible edged steel blade of the Urumi enables wielders to use this weapon like a whip. But it's not always just a single whipping blade doing the damage. Far from it. Sri Lankan Urumis can have up to 32 blades, with each one reaching lengths of up to 5 feet. The sharp edges of this weapon are capable of cutting or tripping an enemy up. On top of that, the bendy blades enable the Urumi to whip around an enemy's shield. No one's safe from this thing. Not even the user. Without good whipping skills, an untrained fighter's just as likely to injure themselves as they are to strike down. But as brutal as this weapon sounds, there's something even more badass about it. After finishing swinging and slashing, some Urumi designs can even be wrapped around the wearer's waist like a belt. Gucci who? The lantern shield. The Italian Renaissance is famous for being an age of discovery, with designs from Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo revolutionizing Western Europe. But there's one piece of ingenuity that eclipses even the work of these weapons. Put your hands together for the lantern shield. And yep, as the name suggests, it's a shield with a lantern. Because why not? It's not known who exactly invented this wacky weapon, but it's thought to originate from 15th century Italy. The shield wasn't that big, with a diameter of just under 1 foot. But what it lacked in size, it more than made up for in style. Attached to the shield was an armored glove with 2 spikes protruding from it. And if that wasn't thorny enough, a long, straight sword blade was fitted below the armored glove. But the craziest thing about this shield wasn't the elaborate design or its spiky features. It was that soldiers placed a lantern behind the shield and could pull down on an attached lever to open a little porthole to shine its light out while still having their shield raised. Now, a flame-fueled lantern at the top of your shield doesn't sound like the brightest idea, no pun intended. However, this weird weapon wasn't used in normal combat situations.
Humans.
Instead, the lantern shield was used in night duels. Italian authorities patrolled the city streets at night, looking for criminals with their super shield. At first, it may seem unhelpful to have a light beaming out of your shield. After all, it will give away your location to enemies. But therein lies the beauty of this weapon. As someone gets closer to the shield, the brightness of the lantern increases, and the harder it is for them to see, thus giving the wielder time to strike down their opponent. Da Vinci, eat your heart out.
Da Vinci.
The man kept love child of a little picker 1700s. But instead of picking
Ay,
up banana peels, this thing
did
was
you
made to
read
pick
the
up
ano?
humans.
What are you
Pole
watching
mounted
ko, no?
with a
Sigara
two-pronged
nag-search
head.
ka sa mga channel,
Prongs
didi.
open,
Sigara,
allowing them to fit around most
Ate
targets'
Rodis
necks
Adventure, imo
before locking
nag-subscribe.
back
And
into a
Ate Agnes
closed
Ordinario,
position.
his
And just for
channel
extra
also is
nastiness, some versions of this weapon were even fitted with inward-facing spikes, meaning if you got caught, struggling was not an option. In times of war, this wicked weapon was used to pull men from horseback and drag them to the ground. It may not seem like the most efficient way of slaying your enemy, but that wasn't always the goal. Opposing knights that were caught alive could be used for ransom, making the man-catcher the perfect weapon for plucking out a pricey person. Most people would assume that this quirky contraption is now confined to the history books, but the man-catcher is still popular today. In the 21st century, Japanese police use a modified version of the man-catcher, but luckily they've ditched the metal spikes for padding and blunt endpoints. You know the old saying, if it ain't broke, slightly modify it so you don't stab people in the neck. The chakram. Anyone who's watched Xena Warrior Princess will recognize these steel discs as one of the main weapons in her arsenal. But this fearsome frisbee wasn't just made up for a fictional TV show. This weapon, called a chakram, may not always don the split-blade design of the weapons seen on TV, but don't discount the damage these discs can do.
It's not it,
Although
wala
its
pa nga
exact
pag 1 hour, it's
origin
just
isn't
30
known,
minutes.
we do know that from the 16th century, this bladed circular weapon was used by the Sikh military. Typically, each one had a diameter between 5 to 10 inches and a flat aerodynamic design, which allowed them to be thrown some 200 feet. To help launch these things, many users adopted a throwing style known as tajani. To start with, the weapon was twirled on the index finger and then thrown with a flick of the wrist. The spinning and quick flick generates both power and distance to the throw. Plus, by spinning their finger along the blunter inner ring of the weapon, users avoid cutting themselves. That's probably a wise thing, considered historical texts claim that when used right, these discs have the ability to slice off entire limbs. Due to the incredibly sharp circular blades of the chakra,
Hi,
along
sa
with the
Marnon
speed
Ray,
it travels,
Ay,
the
why
weapon
don't you
keeps
search that
rotating
sa Marnon?
even
It's
as it
also, he is
penetrates
also
whatever
from,
is launched
maybe
into
he's from,
frisbee the same way again. Corpses. Yep, corpses. In 1343, the Mongols besieged the city of Kaffa, and the siege dragged on for 3 long years. But by 1346, the desperate Mongol army were struggling to break through. To make matters worse, they were facing a deadly outbreak of the bubonic plague, better known as the Black Death. The bubonic plague was a fatal infection caused by the bite of infected fleas traveling on rodents. And once bit, victims suffered from high fevers, muscle cramps, and buboes. Large circular boils around their armpits and groins. Nasty. The only blessing the suffering didn't last long, with most of the infected passing away less than 8 days after their initial infection. Despite the horrors of the Black Death, Mongol ruler Jani Beg refused to abandon the siege. Instead, he came up with a horrific plan. Rather than discard the infected bodies, the Mongols attached them to cannonballs and catapulted them over Kaffa's walls. This is 14th century biological warfare at its finest. So not only did the citizens of Kaffa have to deal with having their city surrounded, but now infected corpses were also raining down on them. Despite the efforts of the people of Kaffa and of sending Kaffa into a meltdown, word sailed to Western Europe, inadvertently bringing the plague with them. And with that, Black Death ravaged across Europe, with the death toll somewhere around the 50 million mark. That's a bunch, don't
Tumulong
they?
the black light niya.
No!
The Odachi. For centuries,
Nagsisearch na nga si
swords
Ronin
have
kada
been one of
nagwa-watch.
mankind's
Papa,
most popular
kada
weapons.
nagwa-watch, sinesearch
Their
niya yung mga
variable shapes
account.
and weights make them the perfect
And
weapon
he
to
likes the
carry
channel
around
of Ate
even
Rodi's
without trouble
Adventure, right?
arises. However,
Yeah.
there's one ancient blade that doesn't adhere to these rules. In 14th century Japan, one type of sword reigned supreme, the odachi. Your average odachi measured in at 3 shaku, which was roughly 36 inches. Considering long swords of the time were about the same length, these were pretty long blades. But the odachi didn't stop at 3 shaku. A 5 shaku blade, one that was roughly 60 inches long, was twice the length of your average sword. In fact, it was so long it was impossible to draw from a sheath on the waist. Either the wielder carried it on their back, or they had a servant carry it for them. Lucky for some. The difficulty in drawing the sword, its heavy weight, and the shift to fighting with guns led to the odachi falling out of favor. That's not to say it disappeared completely, however. In the 15th century, the odachi norimitsu was created. This was a 12 shaku sword. Yeah, double digits, which meant it was 148 inches long, more than 12 feet in total. But as badass as it sounds, it's likely that this sword was created for ornamental purposes, rather than for Japanese giants. And if you think that's a big blade, it ain't the half of it. Introducing the Haja no Ontachi. This odachi sword, believed to have been forged around the 18th century, has a frankly ridiculous reach, stretching over a whopping 15 feet long. For some context, if you were holding the Hana no Otachi upright, it would reach
Hey,
around the
Papa.
same height
Hi,
as a
Papa.
female
Wow, you have
giraffe.
nag-watch
On top of that, the weapon weighs over 165 pounds. And it's no surprise this beast donned the nickname Great Evil Crushing Blade. To be honest, I'm not sure there's much it couldn't crush. Fortunately, the Hana no Ontachi was forged purely as a ritual object for religious purposes. Well, whatever religion it's for, I want in. Which of these ancient weapons did you think was the most incredible? Let me know down in the comments below. And thanks for watching.
Bing chilling, bing chilling. Oh, my happy, happy. Uy! Stop.
Oy, say hi, ate.
Hey, ate.
Ami.
Hey, ate, Ami. I just want the doll to see me. Blah, blah, blah. Mama.
Hi, Ate Mabuhay. Say hi, Ate Mabuhay.
Hi, Ate Mabuhay.
Why don't you search Ate Mabuhay's channel?
Sorry, but I'm playing my Happy Happy Cat game.
Oy, thank you sa pakulay. Did you see that
Thank
amount?
you.
$1.83.
Split. Mama.
What? Oh. Oy, Ronin, Kuya Samarnon asked you to search his channel. And why? Are you bored?
Yeah,
Oh, you want to go home?
I want to go outside.
We're outside. Get to bed. Ano na? You want to search for... Wait. Hoy, come here. Ronin, you bring this one and look for gagamba. Ay, no pala. Wait. Ronin will look for gagamba and...
Salamat sa kanya, Papa. I-retail kay Direk.
Ay, nako, yung anak ko naghahanap ng... Asan na kayo yung papa namin? Huy, Ronin! Careful ha. O paya ka naging t-shirt. Ha? Sige lang, makuring kumahan siya. Kaya Ronin na nara, sige. So ako siya, pinaka, nala kayo. Dahil turunin, pag-plikam ni nga to, maupit lugod. Kaya mo sanit tala, pag-plikam. Hello. Run in. Hi, say hi. Nahiran to ka manggod. Nahiran to ka manggod. May kaluom, tagtang. Iyay. Nahiran to ka manggod. Dito eh, Jilin. Nahiran to. In 10 minutes, mag-stop na po ako ng live. Try ko tomorrow again. Thank you po sa lahat. Sale po. Naka-sale po kami dito. Gusto niyong bumili? We are sale. Ano ko no? Nagsisale po kami. We're live sale from US na mga products. Sale. Who wants to buy? Mga shoes, may chocolates. Thank you everyone. Maya-maya po magla-live ako uli. I mean, mag-stop ako maya-maya. Tapos mamayang mga gabi, mga 6, magla-live ako uli. Yes, magla-live ako uli mamaya. What?
I'm eating an apple.
Very good.
It's from Ate Leia.
Tita Leia, say hi.
Hi, I'm eating an apple now. Ate Leia washed it.
Tita.
Tita.
So in 5 minutes we'll get, no, dili kita mag-offline
skin.
na. Hey, skin is allowed to eat. Ada sit an iya, nutrients. You can
It's
eat it.
inside.
No. Kiri. Mandaw nga. Yung babaro pagkansan.
I'm trying.
Dila dapit. Okay, so gara in 5 minutes mag-out na and later after nun magla-live ito. So, hala na pag-shopping na. Ay, mananim.
Ato nga na
Ulitaw mo. Ha?
Amlay naman, indara man scooter.
Ay, mamulitaw ra may gapod.
Makuri ni Gino, puti mairas tiga.
Patay. Shout out everyone sa lahat ng mga nag-watch. Hi, Ate Mabuhay, Ate Agnes, Ate Ami,
Yummy.
Ate Naura, and sa Marnon, Ate Perky.
Yummy.
Yes. Thank you for watching it. Oy, Ronin, say shout out na dili. Shout out
For
na.
some reason, I don't like the skin.
No, you should eat the skin because ada si taniya ko ano. Ay, shout out to Joel and Ate Agnes. Thank you, siguro, thank you all for watching.
Thank you for watching. And if you already finished if it's already the end of the video, can you please eat an apple?
Later yung eat rice. Apo, sige, mapakita kami ron ni stop ko lang.
And guys, after this vlog, can you please eat an apple? Like what I'm already doing.
Thank you everyone. So thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone for watching, and if you want, just eat an apple, please. So you can be healthy.
Yeah.
Those who love eating these, just eat no matter what. Yummy.
Oh no, don't do that.
I don't like the skin.
Why?
For some reason, I like it and don't like it at the same time.
You should eat the skin because that's the ano. That is the one that make you healthy. Mamaya magla-live ulit kami. Kakain lang. Ay, Ate Mabuhay said, I love that host. Say, I love you too, Ate.
I love you too, Ate.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ate mabuhay. No, don't do that. Thank you, ate mabuhay.
Ay, tagalak magsapatos. Sapatos na. Kaya kami,
Oy, say bye na. Mamaya na po uli.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll be live later again. Maybe 5 p.m. or 6. Thank you everyone. Si Papa nang bahala. Mag-respect. Thank you po.